Now, I believe that Obama and this administration is more fascist than it is socialist, and the reason, this is the difference between socialism, communism, and fascism. In communism and socialism, the government actually takes over the means of production. They own them, they run them, it's a government enterprise, they're not hiding it, they nationalize it all. When they nationalize a bank, it's not just by making an investment and controlling it from the background, they literally take over the bank and put the bureaucrats literally in the office of the CEO and run it. Fascism, I put aside the regular connotation of fascism with racism and all that. Fascism at its core is about the government taking over businesses, but in the background, being a puppet master. So the appearance of property rights, right? We all look like we have property rights. We all own the factories. We all own our job. But really, it's completely being controlled by the bureaucrats in the background. So there is a CEO for the private sector. But, he has to submit his stuff to the pays-off. The pays-off yesterday got 60 pay packages to approve. That's fascism. That's fascism. That's the direction this country's been heading in a long time. Massive government involvement and control. But in the background, leaving us with the pretense that we're still free.
Maybe to make that concrete, for example, here in Charles, what's happening by America. I'm sure everybody's heard the story about Bank of America dealing with Merrill Lynch, and then the fact that the head of the Federal Reserve and the head of the Treasury would, in the back room, force Bank of America to close the deal. Should, in a certain sense, has been shocking to everybody, but not in being the banking industry, it's not surprising at all. We do not live under the rule of law in financial institutions in the United States. We live under regulatory policies that are totally arbitrary, and they can change the policies anytime they want to. They're now systematically replacing the board at the Bank of America, and they're driving out the people that really built the bank and putting in people that have government connections. And that's how fascism works in the real world. So it's very subtle, and the reason that they like that much better is they totally control the Bank of America, and then things go bad, they get blamed. But now, if things go bad, they don't get blamed. The people that, in theory, are running the bank get blamed, but they don't really have control. So fascism is a practically more politically efficient system, and that's why they end up
start with externalities. I find it fascinating, just as an aside, people always talk about negative externalities, but think about the quantity of positive externalities you get every single day. The number of things that other people do that you benefit from indirectly, you never pay for, is astounding. Every beautiful building built that you don't pay, and you get to look at every time, or you get to walk into, and it's over and over again. The positive externalities of capitalism are 1,000 times, a million times, a billion times greater than any negative externalities that might exist. What are the negative externalities? So let's say, there's something bad in our church, and I don't even know what phosphates do, why they're negative externalities. Supposedly they pollute downstream or something. I think that all negative externalities are consequences of not defining property rights. So, in my worldview, you should be able to define property rights over everything important out there. So, in the 19th century in the West, there was a lot of thought put into defining property rights over water. It's not easy. My cow's up here and you're drinking the water downstream. How do we deal with the water being clean? And a whole body of law was developed on how we deal with that. And it did away with those negative externalities through a legal process. And the same thing was done with oil, right? You've got oil under your house. How do I drill for it? Who owns the oil? I mean, this is complicated things, but we had a legal system that did it. Sometime in the early part of the 20th century, we stopped thinking about property because the government pretty much owned everything. 2/3 of all the land west of the Mississippi is owned by state, federal, or local government, not by private individuals. Mineral rights today, if you want to drill anyway, you have to get the government's permission, not negotiate some property rights agreement with somebody. We stopped thinking about property rights. But if you literally thought about the idea that streams would be private, and lakes would be private, first of all, they'd be better taken care of because we know how we treat our property versus how public property is treated. And there'd be a way to resolve these issues. Today, there's no way to resolve these issues. Today, it's a matter of who has more political pull. That's how we resolve a particular issue of externalities. So, for example, there was a case in Klamath Lake in Oregon where the water was being used for two purposes. Water was owned by the government, and everything, the stream was owned by the government and everything, right? So there's agriculture in the Klamath Valley, and the agriculture got a certain percentage of the water, and then the rest went downstream. But there was a drought, and there wasn't enough water, and the question now is, what supersedes water? The fish in the stream, if we cut them off, will die, and they're an endangered species or whatever, or the agriculture, that if we cut it off, it dies. So what do we prefer, agriculture or fish? Who's more politically powerful? Well, it turns out the fish are. Not accidentally. And we basically killed the agriculture in Klamath Valley in order to pump the water. Now imagine that was private property. You had contracts. We know how to resolve disputes with the contracts. We have a legal system. We have arbitration. We have lots of ways to do that. And if you define property rights, if you sold off all that land, if you sold off, think about even airspace, think about oceans. There is a way to do this. So that you basically eliminate those externalities and internalize them through contract and through private property. So that's my solution to those issues. Let me just say something about rationality. And I believe all human beings are capable of rationality. That doesn't mean everybody's equally smart. That's not the same thing. Everybody is capable of thinking. Probably, it would be very hard for people to survive if they couldn't. And certainly, a welfare state reduces incentive. But everybody's capable of thought. Everybody, when they're left alone, is capable of doing that. And if somebody chooses not to, they're on their own. And then they have to suffer the consequences of it. But if you bail out everybody who makes a mistake, they never learn from that mistake and they never have an incentive to think about it.
And I just kind of reinforce it. I think the vast majority of people are capable of thinking well enough to live a successful life in a free society. I also think there's a little different issue that comes out of the implication of the question. The implication is that if some of us are so much smarter than other people, we tell them how they ought to live their lives and control their lives. And we sometimes forget what I think is the bigger, deeper moral issue. The Founding Fathers talk about this a lot. And that is, when they talk about the pursuit of happiness, they were talking about it in what I call an Aristotelian sense, and a life well led. And I'll give you a concrete example. Take a man that's working his tail off, barely making a living as an entry-level construction worker. But he's earned a living. He's proud of that. His family senses that. They get that pride. They may not have much financially, but they have something that's maybe more valuable. Give that same man welfare, and you destroy his sense of purpose in life. And he may eat better, but he has lost a lot of who he is as a human being. And I think when you start being smarter than other people and helping them, there can be really severe consequences on that fundamental need for human beings to take care of themselves and earn the pride from a life well lived and give it the best that they can do. And so I think there could be a real price struggle